Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome in, everyone. I can't say happy Monday because it isn't one, really. We all know that. But I am Chris, and with me today on the other side of the microphone is Nathan. Hey, Nathan.
Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone. I hope we're all doing well and had a lovely weekend despite the madness that was Saturday afternoon.
So much to talk about today. What a weekend. And obviously, we were just chatting before we hit record about the fact that the last few episodes has been, because we're a trio for most of it, and it's been very much recently myself and Will, or Nathan and Will. So it's the first time you and I have coordinated together for a while. So it's going to be fun because you and I didn't get to catch up on the glimmers of hope from last week after the brilliant win away to Fulham. And the feeling that yes, there is hope at the end of all this darkness. And just as always with Wolves, we get to like the brink of maybe it's all turning. It hasn't all gone to plan.
No, it hasn't, and it's so frustrating because it was, as you said, it's just when it felt like there was a bit of momentum and the cracks that we kept mentioning week in, week out was starting to kind of get covered up, and we were moving forwards with things. And then just as that's the case, we get hit with another circus game. And it's not the first time this season we've been in a circus game, and it's just crazy. I don't know. To be honest, I don't even know where to start. It's just a crazy 90 minutes.
Yeah,
absolutely bonkers.
By now, I'm trying to avoid saying the score, but obviously this game, the result, Wolves 2, Bournemouth 4. Just for anyone that isn't living in a black hole, you can tell by the tone of our voice it didn't go well. But and we'll jump into all of it in depth. But let's kind of, as always, rewind time a bit and try and give us some kind of structure. I mean, before the game, going into it, there was hope, as we mentioned. And I had actually said, I think, or dropped slightly into my one of the episodes with Will last week about the fact that I was concerned about what the choices might be if, defenders start to get fit. And we saw Lamina considered for the back. And sure enough, the lineups came out. And he did it. He stuck Lamina in there after saying he considered him an option in press conferences in the week. And I have to say, I mean, what were your thoughts looking at the lineup when it came out?
I understand that don't change a winning team, but I just feel iffy playing players that far out of position. And Lamina did well against Fulham, but I think it's one of those where you go, okay, he's filled that role. But that's not the long-term plan, right? The long-term plan is to have him at centre-half. So surely at the first opportunity of putting a centre-half in, you do that.
Yep.
But my feeling at the time was, well, we've just won 4-1 with that team. So you don't really think too much about it. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, my thoughts were somewhat similar in that the first pass, at least, when I was like, I don't really feel comfortable with that because... Yeah, he did well in the short term in what's essentially an emergency situation with everyone injured. But, all credit to him doing well last week, Lamina, in that spot. It's not his bread and butter. And likewise, I just feel like when you've got two centre-backs sat on the bench and, I mean, Bueno's done well when he's been in. And Dawson, he's made a few errors here and there, but they all have. You can argue that all of the defensive players have made mistakes at some point.
Yeah,
and he did again in this game. But still, I feel I'm beating around the bush. But what I feel is it's actually that he is going with that is easier for the manager at the moment than to make the tough decision of which midfielder to drop.
Potentially. I mean, the job of a manager is to... People are going to be unhappy. You think of players like Tommy Doyle, who hasn't had a look in for a few weeks. But imagine you're Santi Bueno or Dawson, and you see you're in the changing room for whenever he's released who he's starting. You'd be fuming.
Yeah, I would be gutted.
You've just worked to get back to full fitness. You've played in that position, in Dawson's case, for 10 plus years in the Premier League, and a midfielder is going to take your spot. I mean, granted, Lamina did a good job, but the whole point is that he was an emergency centre-half. and his best positions in midfield. And then imagine Dawson sat on the bench and he watches that first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I would dread to even see a heat map of Lemina's positioning. It's like,
because it feels to me like we've been umming and ahhing for a bit about the fact that Andre is, and maybe going off on a tangent, but we're discussing the lineups that Andre came in, when we signed him, man of the month or player of the month, did fantastically well, then vanished. And then last week came back in this makeshift formation because of the fact that Lemina had to drop to centre back. It allowed Andre back into the midfield. We played quite well. And so like, I have a way to fit all of the midfielders in. That's to me what it feels like. Because I don't have to make this tough choice anymore of how to play Andre. I can just put them all in a way that works. And
I think you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I think it is the easiest decision for O'Neill, right? If your team wins 4-1, as a manager, just keep the same team. But unfortunately, that's just the nature of Premier League squads, is you've got multiple players in the same positions that are going to have quality. And we're lucky to have that quality in midfield. And if you drop Lemina or drop Andre or Gomez or Tommy Doyle or whoever it is, it's good. It's a good thing to have that situation where they're coming off the bench and they offer something different.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I think Lemina in midfield in the game, and I'm sure we'll get onto the goals and all the rest of it as we go through today, but I think he would have actually been useful in the midfield position.
Yeah. But overall, I understand the premise of sticking with a winning team. I was happy to see, again, as we go on, I don't think he actually featured much in the game, but initially, just when the lineups came out, I was happy to see Rodrigo Gomez in the lineup again.
Yeah.
João Gomez and Andre, I think together as a pairing is a really potentially strong partnership going forwards. I think they are. They're Brazilian midfield. I just think it's I think that Andre being there allows João Gomez. We saw it even in little flashes in this game, less than against Fulham, that it allows João Gomez, I feel, to roam a bit more and get into the box to box a bit more than it does with Lemina, because they are both a bit more progressive, whereas Andre is very much like, no, I'm going to cover you and you just go.
Yeah. I think that, you've put it perfectly. I think that balance that it brings is very good. And it's a difficult situation because if Lemina wasn't captain, I think it'd be a kind of different conversation. You'd talk about their qualities only. But because Lemina is captain, I'm sure the feel around the dressing room, and I'm sure his feeling as a player, is that he feels he should be starting every game.
I feel like
I know that's not the way it...
Yeah. I feel like this is the problem I'm getting at, because we've discussed earlier in the season when Lemina really wasn't playing well, that he arguably should have been benched more at points. And I feel like this is still the problem. He's got the captain's armband, but makes its problem.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But if we can skip ahead to the first goal and talking of Lemina, it's just we're going to end up in black holes today. I can feel it, but that one simple long ball over the top, it's your bread and butter defensively. Whether you're a makeshift centre half, whether you're a centre half in bad form, that's just bread and butter. And both of them, just no communication, letting the guy run through, and then Totti Gomez committing to a tackle which doesn't need to be made in that position.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a compiled amount of errors, and it was a theme throughout what felt like the whole game, just these individual mistakes that kept adding up. And I don't know what your feeling was watching it, but mine was that, some certain games you concede 4 goals and you go, okay, the team's had 5 shots and they've been really clinical, but it felt like Bournemouth could have had a lot more had they have been more clinical in the final third and sort of pounced on more of our mistakes.
Yeah, this is the weird thing about the game in itself. Yeah, in terms of that particular penalty, it's a direct, it's a long ball that's caused a lot of havoc. Totti kind of dives in when he really doesn't need to, because he's still heading towards the byline. I get that he's close to goal, but he's still got a lot to do. And as long as he shepherds him correctly, he can still, protect the area, but dives in and the rest is history. In terms of the stats, though, that you mentioned, because what's weird is if you look at the game overall, 60% possession to Wolves, 40 to Bournemouth, 10 shots for Wolves, 12 for Bournemouth. Like, it's fair. Like, if you were just to glance at most of the stats, it's fairly even. But it's the
Yeah, I
XG. I
guess.
looked at somewhere. I know we hate coming back to this, but as you mentioned, it was something like 0.8 for Wolves and 3 point something for Bournemouth, because that was the difference. It was so much more dangerous in those moments.
Yeah, and I guess the context of those stats as well. Within the 10 shots that we had, we only got 3 on target.
Mm-hmm.
I think they might have had, is it 8 on target if I'm not wrong?
Yep.
And then I think 5 of their shots on target were in the first 20 minutes.
Mm.
And the context of that just tells you how badly we started the game. You can't be starting a game at home and conceding 5 shots within the first 20, 15 minutes, whatever it was. That's just not something that you can allow to happen. And if you have a bad first 3-4 minutes, which we obviously did have, as a team, you've got to have the maturity to then go, okay, bit shaky there from us. Let's just secure things. Let's stop messing about with it. Let's stop trying to attempt things that are a little bit ambitious. Let's just keep things really simple and shut up shop for a minute whilst we get over this shaky period. But as we've seen so many times this season, we're not able to have that. It feels we're not able to have that Premier League maturity around those moments, because it's no coincidence that we're losing 6-2 at home to Chelsea. We're conceding 5 away to Brentford, rather, and conceding 4 again to Bournemouth. It's a pattern here where we get back into games and we do play well on the front foot at times, but then we're making these shaky defensive mistakes defensively.
Yeah.
And it just can't go on like that, can it?
No. And like you say, it happened again, because it was like the first 20 minutes of the game felt like a basketball match. Like it was end to end in terms of because they get their first penalty, and even then, with the disappointment of, oh my gosh, all this hoping we've conceded an early penalty, I'm still thinking, all right, we know we're capable of scoring goals. We can still get back into this. There's so much of the game to go. Sure enough, literally just on the 5th minute, within inside 5 minutes, Larsen, beautiful header, great build at work. It was like
good ball in. Yep.
It was a good ball in from Bellegarde, with Cunha up to Bellegarde, and then Bellegarde whips in the cross for Larsen. Again, we're losing, but Larsen is still scoring. I feel sorry for this man so much, because he's come in the summer and I think he's doing a great job. He is.
And I think if we take a wider lens on that, I think we've scored the 5th most goals in the Prem this season.
Yeah,
is that
that's right?
5th or 6th? Yeah. So as an attacking force, you've got to credit the forwards where credit's due. I mean, some of their defensive work hasn't been optimal at times, but truly they're on the pitch to create and score goals. And as a attacking unit, rather, we're doing that. And Cunha didn't have his best game at all. I actually thought he was poor at times, which was really, pains me to say that. But that's when Strand Larsen stepped up, and that's when Guedes stepped up, and Bellegarde pops up with an assist as well. So as an attacking force, it's positive. That is a positive thing, but it needs to link up with some defensive positivity as well, because we can't be conceding the amount of goals we are and hope to stay in the Prem. It's that plain and simple, isn't it?
No, it really is. And like you say, so Larsen scores. I mean, that's like 1-1, and you're thinking, okay, great, we're back in this game. And we can still go on, and plenty of time left on the clock to take care of this. And then within, again, a really short space of time, because it was only on the 8th minute that Kirkes, apparently it was his first goal for Bournemouth. That's his first goal, typical, on the overlap to just like, it was just, you describe it. I don't even know what's going on there.
Again, Lamina a little bit out of position, gets dragged all the way over. And to be fair, Evan Nilsson, who's, I quite rate him as a striker for Bournemouth. He completely terrorised our defence throughout the full 90 minutes. He was dragging the centre-halves out of position, and they'd obviously worked on it a lot during the week. You could tell that their triggers were so clear on when to press. And to be fair, it just looked like whenever any defender had the ball for us, they were like, let's just go for it. And the intensity they brought to that, the pressure they put on the midfield, and we just were not ready for it. It seemed as though we were expecting to have as much time on the ball as we had against Fulham, which we didn't. And it looked, just so immature at times. And then, that goal, Lamina gets dragged over by Evan Nilsson. Nice little bit of skill. They work it wide and overlap, and it's in. And I think, to be fair, it did take a deflection off Andre or whoever was making the block, and it goes sort of, unstoppable for Sarr. But it was so frustrating to watch that. It was like, oh God, again.
Yeah, it was so quick.
Surely not.
Yeah.
Surely not. You equalise. There's a great buzz about the place. The noise is back up. Everyone's gone, right, okay, well, forget about that first bit. Little mistake. They've brushed it off and they reacted really well. But the same as always, when you score a goal, you're most vulnerable then 5 minutes afterwards, aren't you? So for that 5 minutes after scoring, just secure what you've got. And we only lasted 3 of them 5 minutes.
Yeah. And before we get on to the rest of the match, the rest of the games, I'll just remind everyone that this podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day.
Every day.
So yeah, it's at that point it's 2-1 to Bournemouth, and my head is very much in my hands. I'm getting very frustrated, and like you say, they were pressing so much. And what I think what frustrates me the most is when I watch a team come and do that to us at the moment. Is that, and again, I think I've mentioned this before, that last season I feel like we were the team doing that to other people. We were pressing high all the time and really not giving people time on the ball, and especially at home, like get into them. Really pushing as a team, as a unit, and pinning people back and winning the ball high up the pitch. And I feel like that's drifted away from us. I don't know where that's gone. That seems to have vanished, and we're just letting them do it to us in reverse.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Our goals it doesn't feel like our goals come from forcing errors out of the opposition, which is maybe credit to some of the quality we've got going forwards. Some of the build up we have is pretty good. And some of the goals we score are very good goals. I think both goals, again, at the weekend, are good goals. But the amount of times that we saw Strand Larsen go and press one of the centre halves or the goalkeeper and then just play it around, and they just seemed to be really set on that. And our press had no, I think it was maybe Dave Edwards who was on commentary when I was watching it back. Just there was no trigger or no obvious trigger to it, or no structure to what you're doing with the press. And whereas for Bournemouth, it was so coordinated. They were doing it all over the pitch and they were really choking us in that defensive position, which ultimately led to their third penalty as well, second penalty rather. But when Strand Larsen actually did bring some intensity to his pressing and charged down their goalkeeper in the second half, it was with a block or something, like a slide tackles type block. It just raises the energy in the crowd. It raises the confidence in the attacking play and stuff. And we didn't see enough of that intensity and pressing as a team. And I don't know. I don't know if it's because we've lost that identity. I don't know if it's a confidence thing, or are we going to go back to saying it's an O'Neill thing? It's hard to say.
Yeah, I don't know. And you mentioned how it led to that third goal. I mean, the penalty that brought up, where it's a back pass, I think, is it Totti back to Sarr, and then he's looking to play the ball out, because again they're passing it around the back. It's not really doing much.
It was lazy, wasn't it?
It's not rushed. And he's closed down by Evan Nilsson, and he kicks. Now there's two elements to this. I will say, there's a part of me that I get why it's given. There's a part of me that doesn't think that's a penalty. Because the ref didn't even give it as a penalty initially, because he was just brushed it off as like, oh, it's a coming together. And I think it kind of is in some ways. Yes, Evan Nilsson's pressured him, but Sarr is already kicking the ball. Like the motion of the kick to the ball is already happening, and the guy puts his leg in front of him, and that's what concedes the penalty. Now, as I say this, Nathan is grinning at me and grimacing. Do you get where I'm coming from?
I understand where you're coming from.
Forget the fact that we're talking about bad defensive play. Forget how quickly he should have got rid of it. We're just talking about the contact. We're just talking about the actual contact and how that is decided.
So the way I see it is, whenever I play a defensive position football, and whenever that happens to me, I accept that it's a foul. I know that my intention isn't to tackle a player. My intention is to kick the ball, but ultimately I've just been too slow. And Sarr, by being too slow, has just, smashed into the back of Evan Nilsson's Achilles. And I think that is just a pen.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the like opposite point, in that Sarr's intention isn't to kick him. his intentions is to kick the ball, and he's not even looking at where it's coming from. And you might want to liken it to like when there's a handball and the player can't even see the ball coming or isn't even watching the ball or something. But for me, different to those handball situations, this one's just one where he's cleared the player out and hasn't touched the football. And in that situation, in my opinion, it's a pen.
Can we also say,
as you said,
yeah, sorry, on a bigger footballing note though, there's an element of me that thinks even if it is a foul, that there's an argument it should be like a free kick inside the penalty area. Do you know what I mean? Like with the what's the term? Is it? I don't know if it'd be a direct with a wall or whatever,
indirect,
because he's still got to get the ball and turn. At that point, the ball is going away from goal, and he'd be running away from goal with it. Like it's not. Do you get where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest,
I know it makes no difference in the bigger picture of this game.
Yeah.
I'm just talking. I've gone off on a random tangent about the actual mechanics of this decision.
Yeah, I think I know we were trying to avoid it, but I think the main thing here is that wasn't the first time that we were nearly caught out at the back, and there could have been many more occasions where we gave away silly fouls, or there's one in the first half again where Sarr came out the box and it was like he was so cool, calm, and collected with it, but it's like as a fan who's just watched him give away a pen for something very similar, just clear the ball.
Yeah. Regardless of my weird semantics on how these are called, it was another terrible moment at the back. We've conceded the penalty. They score again. And like you say, the thing is they then keep doing it. And we've done this all season when a team has pushed high on us and caused all the errors, we insist on still playing out from the back in a really slow back and forth manner. It's just like, just boot it. We've got a massive striker up there. Just give him something to chase. If we need to go old school, go old school.
And it's just, or it's just the manner in the way that we do things. If you're going to play out from the back and that's the way that you want to do it, fine, but do it with intent. Not this kind of, just tentative play where it's going back and forth between Totti and Lamina, and then we maybe bounce it off the midfielder, but there's no real intent to where it's going. It needs to start zipping about a bit, especially if you're losing 3-1 at home. Or if you're at home, full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably, if you're at home, full stop, there should be some confidence behind everything you do. And start zipping it about, get it wide, get it up to your attacking players as quickly as possible. I don't remember many times Cunha getting the ball from us building up from the back. No. And I think we might come on to him, but I really think he had when he did get the ball, I think he had a poor game quality-wise.
I was going to say, even before you mentioned it, I thought you had a mare yesterday. And it's arguably one of the reasons, again, why as a team we probably weren't very good, because he's been so integral for us recently. I feel like it was a mixture of Bournemouth did pretty well in terms of shutting him down, because there was usually someone in midfield he likes to sit in that area between like defense and midfield a lot. And there was usually someone kind of in that gap, just eliminating some of those passes. And on top of that, when he did get it, I think the more the game went on, the more potentially frustrated he was obviously getting. He would overrun it a lot. There was points when he had chances to lay it off to Aït-Nouri, for example, on the overlap, and he would just keep going and going and going, and then gave the ball away because he ran into a dead end. And he was giving really poor passes away at points. And don't get me wrong, I love him. He's been amazing for us, but it just felt like yesterday he was not at the races.
It was another one of those situations where, I mean, we know how emotional Cunha is with football, and that's part of the reason that we love him and the way he plays, because of how passionate he is. But it felt as though every time he got the ball, he had to try and do something that was not the simple thing, but the thing that's going to be something amazing. Like he was always trying to beat another player or trying to find that killer pass that was going to put someone through on goal, or he was just almost trying too hard of it. And I think when you're getting marked out of games and stuff, and it's obviously very difficult because he's been identified as our biggest threat, which he is when he's on his game. Just try and do the simple things, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's where Gary O'Neill's coaching on how to get him into the game at half time. Gary O'Neill knows that he's not in the game. He knows that our biggest talent going forwards is not getting any of the ball. It's at that point where some decision needs to be made to try and free him up. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they were.
No.
With regards to the midfield substitutions and the different players that he brought on, none of them really freed up Cunha. If anything, they just brought more to Strand Larsen, which is absolutely fair enough. I mean, brought Guedes on and sets up the goal very well. But it, again, just a little bit frustrating, and it's not all about Cunha, but it's just, it felt like a game. If we scored 2 goals, you'd expect him to be fully involved in both, which, I know he lays it off to Bellegarde for the first one, but he really wasn't involved in much going forwards for us.
No. There was a couple of points yesterday I was genuinely calling out. Like at one point, as I mentioned, when he was running down, he'd run past 2 or 3 players, I think, towards the left flank. And as he's going down there, Aït-Nouri's making that overlap. And I'm like, just pass it. Just pass it. Because I know, like you said, he felt like he wanted to do something amazing, or felt like he had to take the game by the scruff of the neck. But there's points where he just needed to trust someone. That's kind of how it felt.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, it was a little bit all over the shop in the second half as well. And I know you've got to go for it when you're 3-1 down, but the structure to it was really weird to pick out. I don't know if you were able to figure out what sort of formation we're playing. And I know it's fluid, but like Aït-Nouri spent a lot of time in the number 10 position. I have no idea how or why. Like he does a decent job there. He's obviously very technical and stuff, but then it almost left the left side a little bit exposed, and then Dawson's come on, and I mean, he's ultimately the one who makes another mistake for their fourth, but it just felt very disjointed.
Yeah.
And again, disjointed.
Yeah. I think I'm a bit of my words keep leaving me this today. I think just because I am so confused about this game overall. It was such an odd day. And yeah, we got back into it again, kind of late on with the second goal. And again, Larsen, I mean, because he's doing his job, he's in the right place. Again, he makes a good run as the ball comes up to Gedge. I'm going to try and say his name like it's meant to be said for some reason. I'm feeling very continental today. And, Gedge gets the ball, manages to slip free of his man. And because he's lost his momentum, looks up and sees that Larsen's made the run, lays off a lovely pass. And he's there to do like what he's been doing all season. And I think I'm falling in love with Strand Larsen like I am with Cunha in a very different way. He's not that run and drive with the ball creative guy, but he's just a fox in the box kind of guy. He's there.
Yeah. And he if you watch, he really does pass the eye test. You've got players that will score goals and be good at finishing in the box and whatever, but his all-round play is fantastic. He drags the centre-halves out of position. He makes runs down the channel, countless amount of times where he's not supported after making those runs, and he's down sort of in the corner flag area because he's made a 30-40 yard running behind, and he's managed to, hustle it off the defender or whatever and keep the ball, and there's no one up there to support him. And he's doing that for 90 minutes. His energy throughout is brilliant, and it's just such a shame that he scores 2 goals at home and that we've got nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
For all the efforts he's putting in, ultimately his teammates let him down on Saturday, big time.
And that goal did almost feel, like you say, because the second half kind of felt like it was drifting a bit aimlessly. Bournemouth looked like they could score several times over because we just looked so shaky at the back. We get that goal, I don't want to say against the run of play, but it just kind of felt out of nowhere all of a sudden. It was just a magic, again, just one of those beautiful little moments that just unveiled itself out of nothing. And then there's a glimmer of hope again. The crowd are chanting, we are the boys from the Black Country and all that kind of stuff. But then it just felt like, again, moments later, passing it around at the back again. Dawson, of all people, Ballon Dawson, I've watched that moment several times. He doesn't look up when he passes it back. Have you noticed? His head is down, and it's literally a head down. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where to go. I'm just going to lay it back. But he doesn't check at all what is around him, and plays Sarr into Sarr pretty much has got no choice there other than to try and get that.
No, of course, yeah. And I felt, Sarr was at fault for obviously the second penalty, but I did feel sorry for him in that moment because he gets cleaned out as well with that. But it's, we might have to take the Ballon Dawson nickname off him because that's just so basic. Yeah. That is so basic. And again, you're back in the game. You've got, what is it, 20 minutes to go at that point? 20 minutes to go. And that's a fantastic opportunity to put the ball in the box again a few more times and again, just try and build on something. Try and create a bit of consistency for a few minutes in a game. And it's crazy that we're talking about within spells of games trying to create consistency. We can't even talk about let's create consistency over like a run of games. We've got to do it in games now. let's do 10, 15 minutes where we're just solid, keep the ball and dominate things a little bit. But as you said, our goal came out of the blue. Brilliant. We're back in it. And then lack of concentration or awareness or whatever it was. And then just selling the goalkeeper short. And it's just, and Bournemouth was so ready for this. At every time that we had the ball at the back, they were so ready to pounce on that thing. And because we made those mistakes in the first half, I was just expecting us to just not make them in the second half, because I'm assuming that they got told at half time, like, guys, wake up here. We can't be spending, 10, 15 seconds on the ball, messing about with it, and then hesitantly passing it off to the midfielder. And Dawson was caught out with a pass similar to that 5 or 10 minutes earlier, where he tried to play it short to Gomez in midfield when he was being pressed by 2 players. And as a centre half, when you can see your midfielder in front of you, you can see who's pressing him. Don't give him that ball if he's got 2 people pressing him behind him. It's basic. And that was his first mistake of the game, where he has to then take out the striker, gets given a yellow, and then ultimately makes another mistake again afterwards. And it's like, none of these mistakes were a wake-up call. And I think that's the most worrying thing, is that it was non-stop. If you make a little mistake in the first minutes, the good teams, they go, right, okay, that's a wake-up call, let's not make it again. But we made them again and again and again for 90 minutes.
Yeah, it is the most upsetting thing, especially when, we scored that second goal again, like, as I say, out of nowhere. And even then, like we mentioned, because of our goal scoring record, even then with 20 minutes to go at 2-3, you're still thinking, all right, we could still get a draw here. We could still maybe even win this, because we are more than capable. We've seen it this season of scoring a batch of goals in a short space of time. And then that happens, and you're like, well, what is the point? If I'm Larsen, I'm just thinking, what is the point? It doesn't matter how many a score. They're just going to concede more goals at the back.
Honestly, it's crazy. The neutrals, match of the day,
Oh, yeah.
and all the rest of them must be absolutely loving us.
They
must be loving us. They must be watching every game thinking, yeah, the Wolves, it just means goals at both ends.
It's the only reason we were on match of the day, I think, second or third again, because there's so many. It's purely because there's so many goals in the game. That is the only reason they move us up to the front end of the schedule. It's absolutely crazy.
Circus entertainment.
Before we vent anymore, let's just take a moment to tell you that here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we did spend a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner, unlike Wolves, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. But yeah, so then, well, we've been through all the goals. So it was 4-2. And at that point, to be honest, after all of that, Nathan, I don't know where I'm at now, to be honest. I feel like
it's draining.
It's draining. As we said, the hope before that game was starting to return. And then I'm drained. And then I just don't know what to expect. We've got Everton coming up in like just a few days. It's on Wednesday night. I have no idea what version of us. I have no idea what version of us is going to turn up. I have no idea what centre backs are going to play, who's going to play there. And you mentioned about how it looked like Bournemouth were ready for us and in terms of how they set up and so aggressive and everything. Well, I'm not surprised, because if I'm away manager right now, I'm thinking whatever formation they play at the back, they haven't got many fit centre backs, and the ones they are playing are not used to those positions, and they're even playing a midfielder at centre back. Of course, I'm going to make my forwards be aggressive in the press. I mean, I would just go for it.
Absolutely, you have to, and yeah, it's almost like teams are just expecting to be able to outscore us. And it's crazy, and it's just so shaky all round. And I don't think it doesn't look as though the players know exactly the way they're going to play either, because the intent isn't clear. And it probably down to confidence and nerves and stuff. But really, that shouldn't have been an excuse on Saturday. Coming up 4 games unbeaten, it's the first time this season. It was the best game to go into this season, wasn't it? All the positive behind them, all the good performances behind them, or 4 good performances behind them. So it's hard to know what to think about the Everton game. I mean, the only thing I could think of is that they've, at the time that we're recording this, they've just been beat 4-0 by Man United. So there's a potential that they're in the same disarray as us, and it's a chance for us to just go, right, let's try and forget that, and let's try and remember the good things from the 4 previous games.
Yeah, you never know, and we're not too bad against Everton over recent history. Fingers crossed. And I don't want to, in all of this whining, I don't want to, as bizarre as it sounds as a Wolves fan, discredit Bournemouth. I think that they're a solid side. They've had some good performances this season. I do think, obviously, we still banked a lot on this game, being that after that opening run of fixtures, it was in that list of games at home where you're thinking we should get something from this, especially after the recent results. It was never going to be easy. I don't want to put that across for any moment, but you would just expected so much better than just all these silly mistakes. Because once again, from open play, not awful. It's just shooting ourselves in the foot with these silly mistakes again and again and again. And we've seen it all season.
I know. And I had real faith that it wasn't going to happen. I mean, my prediction was 1-1.
Yeah, I would have taken that.
Yeah. I would have taken it as well, but it was quite far from the truth. So it shows how much, how accurate I can be with those predictions there. But
yeah, and I mean, I guess because to be honest, we could vent about this all night. Before I look ahead, just briefly to like Everton and closing, was there anything from this game in particular, Nathan, that we haven't already touched on that you wanted to just that you'd been thinking I need to make sure we discuss that?
Not really. I'm just the one feeling is that I'm really worried that the 4 games that we got points out of were just flukes. So my feeling is of worry at the minute. But no, Strand Larsen, what a player.
Yeah, Strand Larsen, what a player. That's fair enough. Well, yeah, we've got. So looking ahead before we wrap up, as I mentioned, we've got Everton on Wednesday, the 4th of December, literally just a few days from now as we record this, 7:30. Is this on Prime? I feel like I want to say this is on Prime. But
I think so, yeah. I think so.
And so I'm not, because I don't go to many away games nowadays, I'll be honest with you. I'm a middle-aged guy with 2 kids. It's hard to venture that far away. However, so I'll be watching it. But in case we don't get, because obviously we'll have multiple previews coming up with the following game against West Ham on the Monday the 9th. Again, we've got these massive run of fixtures coming up. So we've got Everton, then West Ham, then Ipswich, then Leicester. I mean, these next 4 games are huge.
Huge.
Should we do a quick mini kind of like, you said we don't know what to expect, but what are you feeling we're going to take from Everton? Do you think we're going to get anything?
I think it's going to be a boring draw, and I've been saying that for a few games now. I'm just really hoping this time it's true. It would be great if we can pull off a second clean sheet of the season. I'd take the trade-off now. I think it's more important for us now to be solid defensively than it is to continue scoring goals.
Yeah, I agree. So we're capable of scoring goals. We just need clean sheets. Clean sheets, please. It's the way forward. But yeah, I'm hoping we get. I mean, obviously, I'm hoping we win always, but we've got to get something. We can't lose to Everton. We just cannot lose to Everton. No. It's unacceptable. No. I mean, if we lose to Everton after this performance today, yesterday, as we record this, it makes you start to think again about. I know there's already people thinking about it, but in terms of what the future holds for the club and the manager, because that would be atrocious.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when you look at the table and you look at stages of previous seasons, there's always a little cut off about halfway through the season. There's always a cut off down the bottom where there's sort of 5-6 teams that are in the conversation about relegation. And we're getting towards that stage in the season now, if we're not already at it, where there's 5-6 teams that, are looking, right, okay, we're in the battle now for relegation. And I think that result against Bournemouth, if it's followed up by 1 or 2 more poor results, then we are set as being one of those teams in that battle.
Yeah,
and it really does pain me to say it, but I think that is the situation that we're in at the minute. So huge fixtures coming up.
Well, on that happy note, everyone. I mean, what a way to start your week!
I'll put the pressure on there.
Yeah, what a way to start your week with us. I mean, if you made it this far with us through the misery, through the pain, through the random venting, then thank you for sticking with us all of this time. We are Daily Wolves. I'm Chris. This is Nathan. We will try and build up our morale to continue episodes this week.
We will.
As ever, because it's a huge week for Wolverhampton Wanderers and us here and all of you out there. But yeah, thanks for being with me, Nathan.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And I'll do it as I always do, but it does feel a little bit harder to say today. But just remember, people, even in the darkest of times, out of darkness cometh light.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.